I have a burning question here for our first Mariners storyline. Why has Bryce Miller been so up and down?
I think there's a couple things with this. Number one, this is sometimes how rookie seasons go. Look at Logan Gilbert in 2021. He certainly had his hills and valleys, and Logan Gilbert had more of an arsenal than Bryce Miller does in terms of pitches. Logan Gilbert had his good starts, and he'd have his really shaky starts. There were times in 2021 where Logan Gilbert had nothing but his fastball working, and that's all he would throw. This is how it goes sometimes. But if you look at Bryce Miller's last handful of starts, even two handfuls of starts, it's a different ball game than what it was looking like earlier in the year. His outings have not been as long. He's given up more hits. He's getting hit a little bit harder. Since about mid to late June, he just has not had that same effectiveness.
You can chalk it up to a couple of things. One, he's really not been very good pitching on 4 days rest, which is the typical amount of rest you get in a rotation. This is a guy who had never pitched on 4 days rest in his career until getting to the big leagues. And with the delivery that he has and the concerns that a lot of scouts had when he was coming up, is that how is that delivery going to hold up over the course of a whole season, over the course of a whole outing, pitching 7 innings? How's the velocity going to hold? How's the location going to hold? And as we've seen, it does kind of get spotty as the game goes along, depending on the opponent. There's a couple of things here. His hard hit rate has really skyrocketed this last bit. Now, I don't necessarily correlate that to him not holding his velocity very well. Funny enough, there was some concern on Saturday in that first inning, or Sunday, when he was getting knocked around in the first inning about, well, is his fastball going to work? Well, his fastball ended up working pretty well that day, and he ended up holding his velocity very well, averaged 96 miles an hour for the entire game. But then there's these outings where he's sitting in the 4th and 5th inning and he's tossing 92, 93 on his fastball. And those are the pitches that are getting hit pretty hard. Fun fact, of the 10 home runs he has given up on his fastball this season, only one of those fastballs was above 94 miles an hour. Think about that. So when he's throwing hard, his fastball is generally a more effective pitch, as you would think. But when that velocity dips, that high spin fastball doesn't look quite as dangerous anymore. And with his shaky off-speed pitches, it really comes back to bite him in that sense. That's what I think it really all boils down to. Like Logan as a rookie, if his fastball's on, he'll be on. If his fastball's not on, then buckle up.
Along with the fact that when you are as fastball reliant as Bryce Miller is, he's about 65% fastballs in terms of his pitch selection. That will result in some outings where you just get hit harder. It happens. If guys are timing up your fastball, you will get hit around harder. He hasn't given up many home runs on high velocity fastballs, but he has gotten hit around a little bit, especially in the last few weeks. If you look at a lot of his peripherals on Baseball Savant, it would suggest that, as a lot of them are starting to trend in the wrong direction. Now, that doesn't mean he can't turn it around, but how can he do that? I think Bryce Miller has to develop a third pitch. I think he absolutely needs one. It's not going to happen in the middle of this season, this winter, this spring, this upcoming spring, I should say. He needs a third pitch. His 2 pitches are great, the fastball and the slider, but something else has to be mixed in there to keep those hitters off balance. Even if you want to keep the high fastball percentage up, even if you still want to throw a lot of sliders, something else has to be mixed in at least every so often to keep guys on their toes.
He should join the Splitter Club. I'm officially putting my stamp on that.
Sure, everybody else in this rotation's learned one. There's no reason Bryce Miller can't learn a splitter. I mean, hey, just ask any other guy in the rotation, hey, how do I throw this?
Results-wise, his slider has actually been pretty decent this year. The problem is it's just not really a strikeout pitch. I mean, he'll get some weak contact on it, and he generally kind of tries to throw it down in the strike zone. He did this last start against the Angels on Sunday, threw it in that down away corner to right-hand hitters more than he has in any start this season. I saw that on Twitter. I was like, that's interesting. So I went back and I looked at some of his previous starts, and he really didn't have great command of that pitch. He's kind of spraying it all over the place, and Sunday was the first time he's really commanded that pitch well, which is a good sign. So it's like, okay, so maybe an off-speed pitch is actually coming along that's reliable, that you can throw for a strike, or you can bury down a little bit. But the problem is it's not really a swing and miss pitch, only has a 20% whiff rate, which is not a strikeout pitch. His best strikeout pitch is his fastball, but you kind of play with fire there because his fastball is also the pitch that more often than not gets hit the hardest, which, when you're trying to put someone away, you'd rather throw a pitch that they A, can't hit hard, B, can't hit at all, rather than a pitch where if they don't swing and miss, they're probably barreling it up to the outfield.
We've highlighted this before too, right? There are guys in the majors that are starters that throw 2 pitches. Robbie Ray basically throws 2 pitches. Tyler Glasnow throws 2 pitches. Bryce Miller throws more fastballs than those guys. So because of that, because of the very high fastball usage, along with having 2 pitches, I think a third just needs to be mixed in there. Again, throwing a lot of fastballs is what he does best. It is his best pitch. But something else I think needs to be mixed in there just to give him some different results and find that second out pitch.
So the slider I was talking about was his gyro slider, the one that pretty much essentially goes down.
Right.
I didn't realize this looking at the numbers until I actually looked at it. He did essentially ditch his sweeper. He threw it 8 times against the Angels, but in the previous 2 starts, I think he'd thrown it 1 time each because that pitch really had gotten crushed. He allowed a slugging percentage of over 700 against that pitch. And what was the name of that pitch? The cannonball? Well, it was being cannonballed into the outfield over the wall because he was not getting guys to swing and miss at that. So I would think, based off the profile of pitches he would have, I think that splitter would be good. But we'll see, because this is an off-season project for him, and that'll be it. And improving command of that slider again, which he has not had great command until Sunday. Which command can almost be as important as just having a nasty pitch.
It's good you highlighted that, because when Miller came up, that's what we talked about, is he had a fastball and he had 2 sliders. So the 2 sliders he threw were basically 2 off-speed pitches or 2 breaking balls. But now that he's ditched that sweeper, it is strictly 2 pitches. So if he could add something with a little bit of a different shape or movement on it, like a splitter, which a lot of guys just use as a changeup instead now, that's what Logan Gilbert does, yeah, that could really work for him. So let's circle back to this next spring and see if he's made some adjustments. If I had to put some money on it, I would guess that he would.